What's up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the certifiably suave Dr. Disaster, and one of the most amusing things in the world to watch is a company like Games Workshop completely changing their tune on something as soon as they realize how unpopular their decision was.
Do people not like me?
Schadenfreude is one of my guilty pleasures. I sincerely enjoy watching these companies squirm once they've stepped in shit. Earlier this year, Games Workshop decided to add females to the formerly all-male Adeptus Custodes faction in Warhammer 40k, claiming that this had always been a thing, absolutely gaslighting anyone who read their pronouncement, and in response to this decision, there was a massive revolt. Gamers turned on them in droves and vowed to boycott the product. Well, unfortunately, this didn't have the effect that we wanted it to. Games Workshop dug their heels in and told us to pound sand. It wasn't until the success of Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 and the subsequent rise in the stock price of Games Workshop that they finally dropped this progressive insanity and decided to embrace what gamers actually want. This highlights what I have been saying for a while now, that these companies respond better to positive reinforcement than negative. When somebody like Games Workshop, when a company like this puts out something that we actually like, it is important that we support it and show these studios that this behavior, that making a game like Space Marine 2 will make them rich.
What exactly is it that they do?
Kick names, take ass.
Shut up and take my money!
It was this success which seems to have finally convinced these morons at Games Workshop that pushing diversity and inclusion in a grim, dark world like Warhammer, where horrible atrocities happen regularly and nobody cares, nobody bats an eye. These are not societies that would give a shit about human rights and making sure that girls feel included. These are peoples who simply exist as they exist, with no apologies and no consideration of modern progressive sensibilities. And so, Games Workshop has retconned the female Adeptus Custodes in the Ultimate Guide, which was recently released, because when you're facing off against swarms of monsters, you just want dudes who behave like this.
Come on, you bastard! Come on, you too! Oh, you want some of that?
You don't want to worry about people's fee-fees when you're putting together an army. Otherwise, eventually you get stuck running with people like this.
I broke a nail.
Alright, me hearties, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and also, don't forget to follow me over on Twitter or X, or whatever you want to refer to it as these days. I keep a list on there of games lousy with wokeness pinned to the account at all times for your reference. My handle over there is Dr. Disaster 1. But alrighty, let's talk about this Games Workshop situation where it seems that they finally buckled and decided to retcon the female Adeptus Custodes. The 40k Ultimate Guide has actually been out for about 2 months now, but it was just discovered that they clearly refer to the Custodes as all males in the guide. Considering the timing, I suspect that this is a direct result of the success that Space Marine 2 enjoyed in September. Let me clarify it all for you though. It was back in the spring, around April, when Games Workshop put out the idea that the Adeptus Custodes faction would now include females. The idea floated at the time was that in the upcoming Amazon show featuring the Warhammer 40k IP, Amazon wanted to be able to feature a female Space Marine, but they decided that changing that would have had entirely too much blowback, so they decided to retcon the lesser-known Adeptus Custodes and add females to that faction. There was a lot of blowback, as I'm sure that you remember, especially considering that there were already tons of females already in the 40k lore. There were the Sisters of Battle, for cripe's sake, but Games Workshop weathered the storm of all of our complaints, and they didn't change anything, not at first. The thing is that a lot of these progressive types view themselves as enlightened souls, and they view anyone who disagrees with them as immoral, so they hunkered down. But what is important to remember is that all of this corporate wokeness actually stems from a desire to get rich. They are pandering because they want to make money. They think that's the avenue to do it. They have the mistaken belief that DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is actually the way to make a shitload of money, without understanding that adding these standards to an IP, to an art form, is something that will essentially kill that art. Now, fast forward to September, and Space Marine 2 came out from a developer, Saber Interactive, who was extremely unapologetic in its embrace of supposedly toxic masculinity. They made a game that was simply Warhammer 40k doing what it does best, and these Space Marines were badass dudes with little moral scruples, and the game sold really well. I think it is no coincidence then that a month and a half later, when the Ultimate Guide releases for Warhammer 40k, that it explicitly retconned the female Custodians. There are 2 passages which do the retconning. I'm going to read them both to you. This is the first one. It says, "As a legion of exceptional individuals, the Adeptus Custodes are less regimented than other Imperial forces, with promotion based entirely on merit. The Captain General leads, aided by a group of 10 tribunes. Below the tribunate, commanders of individual forces are known as shield captains. Armies, or shield hosts, are formed from across all 5 orders, dozens of other sub-organizations, brotherhoods, and groupings run through the orders, such as the Companions, Wardens, Shadowkeepers, or Solar Watch." So, they explicitly mention a brotherhood, but this next passage really leaves no doubt as to whether or not there are supposed to be female custodians. This one here says, "As custodians accumulate victories, they are awarded a name to commemorate each one, though these are kept secret from those outside the Legion, and in public, a custodian will continue to use the name granted to him upon his investiture." So, they are explicitly calling them males once again, and I attribute this to all the people who went out and supported a game, Space Marine 2, that was awesome and catered to gamers. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not kissing Games Workshop's ass or anything here. I still view them as unworthy custodians of a lore that people love. But Saber Interactive wasn't pissing around. They made a great game out of Game Workshop's IP, and as a consequence, the stock price of Games Workshop skyrocketed. Starting in September, these are the sorts of things that will absolutely influence a company to make decisions in the future. I'm not saying that we shouldn't fight back when these troglodytes make boneheaded decisions. We definitely should, but this highlights the importance of supporting them when they come back around. When they do something that we do support, we have to show that they will be accepted, that we aren't mindless hardliners, because otherwise we drive them away forever. So, celebrate this victory. Who knows, it might not last long, Games Workshop might push back, but for now, the heretical female Adeptus nonsense has been beaten down. But I'm going to leave it there. Drop your thoughts down below as to what you think of this Games Workshop female Adeptus Custodes situation is. Drop your thoughts down below and we will talk about it there. Thanks for watching me, Hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.